Hey, welcome back to the kitchen. So I'm gonna teach you the stir fry dish today because man, oh man, do I love going to this one. Honestly, I probably make a stir fry once or twice a week for my family because it is one of the easiest things to make. Very similar to the burrito. You're kind of grabbing whatever you have in your fridge and you're putting it together with some delicious flavors and you're putting it over your favorite grains. Or sometimes you can do just a total veggie stir fry with some protein or all veggie. It's totally up to you. Depends on the types of veggies. They gotta be hearty vegetables like Brussels sprouts and broccoli and carrots and hearty vegetables if you're not gonna have any types of grains or starches with it. But the thing that makes it so awesome is that you can do so many things with a stir fry. I mean, I'm talking like, okay, you're not gonna put noodles in a wrap, right? So a burrito doesn't go with noodles. But man, do I love noodles. And I use these brown rice and millet noodles that I will share with you. They are so delicious and they are approved by all the health gurus. I also love using stuff like butternut squash, sweet potatoes, regular potatoes. I use lentils or rice. There's quinoa. So there's so many different types of grains or starches that you can use for your stir fry to flavor it up and to have fun with it. The vegetables can be a medley of anything. I love broccoli in my stir fry. I love Brussels sprouts in my stir fry. I do peppers, onions, if it's carrots, they've already been baked before, and so all I gotta do is reheat them. So that's also another great thing is that if you make vegetables for one of your grilling greens and you have leftovers the next day, they're easy veggies to add to a stir fry dish. So I wanna really make it clear that these are very simple strategies to take whatever you've got in your kitchen and make a meal. So this is gonna be fun. Grab your ingredients, think about what you want to be in this stir fry because tonight I am going to be showing you my lentil, vegetable, and tofu stir fry. Right? I'm going to get the vegetables I want. I'm going to put a tofu in there, which is going to be lightly sauteed. I'm going to do a little, yes, breaded tofu. I'm going to saute that, end it at the end, and I'm putting it over a bed of lentils because lentils are so good for your gut health and it's a great hearty grain that's going to make you feel wonderful. So get ready for some fun. All right, you guys. So I took out all my ingredients. All right, I rinsed my veggies already and I've got everything set to go. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm always going to start the ingredient that's going to take the longest, which is going to be the lentils tonight. Right? So I usually get my grains in bulk and I'm just gonna make a cup of lentils, right? I mean, if I wanted to make my life even easier, I could use leftover rice that I have in the fridge, but I'm feeling like in the mood for some lentil, so I'm gonna do the lentils. And actually, you guys, I always rinse my lentils because they oftentimes have some like little grains, a little bit of film on them, just like some of the oats and things like that. So I highly recommend that you rinse your rice, your oats, your quinoas, your farro, even steel cut oats especially, stuff like that, because all these grains have a little bit of soot on them, a little bit of just like a little, I don't know what it is, like a dusting, right, of just all of the grain powder. All right, so we'll get that rinsed off. And I'm using my chicken broth because you know how I like to make my grains if I'm boiling rice or something like that. I like to use chicken broth. It gives it a little bit of extra flavor, right? Just soaks into it. So I just opened up a freshie. I'm going to use 1 cup of lentils, 2 cups of chicken broth. And I'm going to get that started so that it starts to boil up for me. And if I can get this boiling and simmering, this will be done in no time. Very similar to rice, right? Very, very similar. The way that you cook it, get it to a boil, throw that cover on so that water boils quickly, and we're good to go. Now, I'm also going to be doing some tofu tonight. So if you do tofu, I don't know if you like tofu, if you don't like tofu, but it's all about how you prepare it. So tonight, I'm going to do some fried tofu. And I don't deep fry it, I just saute it on the pan. I'm gonna cut a good little slice for me and Vito. My kids love tofu as well, so I'll cut a little extra for them, but I'm gonna put it in a separate little bowl because they like it with a little bit of chicken flavor. And we're gonna saute a little bit of it in some barbecue, Japanese barbecue sauce, which it's not approved, right? This is one of those things where I cheat on a condiment because the only thing that's not good in it is the added sugar, and it's really not that much added sugar, and I don't add a ton to my recipes because it goes a long way. So you kind of have to make those gut calls for your family. If you think that, like, you know, one of your condiments is really terrible, try to get rid of it. If you're like, you know what, it's not so bad and I'm only using a little bit of it, it's not going to harm you in small doses, right? Especially when you're eating such a healthy meal, that a little extra sugar in there isn't going to kill you. So what I do is I throw it into a bowl. I throw that tofu into a bowl, and you can use like a soy sauce or you could use a marinade. I'm just going to throw a little bit of this Japanese barbecue sauce. It's so good, but it's like, okay, a little extra sugar. Okay, nobody's going to kill you. And we're just putting a little bit of that in there because tofu is very absorbent. It'll just suck in whatever flavor you've presented to it. So it's really nice to do that before you put a little semolina flour on there. Or you can use regular flour, you can use breadcrumbs, whatever you want to do. I like this because it's almost like flour, it's just a little more grainier. Semolina flour, good for that little powder on top of it before I fry it in a little bit of olive oil or coconut oil. Right? So I'm gonna let that sit for a second before I powder it up and get it ready. And then the next thing I'm gonna do is just prep my veggies. I love putting my veggies in a stir fry pan. See, this thing is brilliant, and it really allows me to steam the vegetables pretty quickly. It doesn't burn them, and I'm doing an array of vegetables tonight. I got some celery, I have some zucchini, a little zucchini. I got some peppers and onion. Peppers and onion. I'm gonna, you know, use my red pepper because I figured if I use green pepper or I use yellow, everything's gonna be green or yellow. So I grabbed red and then some broccoli, and I'm gonna garnish it with some green onion. Okay, these are from my garden actually. So just chopping it up. Now I know that some people who don't normally cook are probably like, oh, you know, how do you chop and all that? It really doesn't matter in a stir fry. You just want your vegetables to all be around the same size so that they cook around the same time. And vegetables cook at different times, right? So, for instance, celery is going to cook at about the same pace as my onion, my pepper, my mushrooms, my broccoli, my zucchini, if they're all about the same size in diameter. And so I'm gonna cut these a little bit thick because I don't want them to be too small. If they're really, really small, they're gonna cook faster than everything else. And so I'm gonna make things about the same size. I got my celery right here, and you can see I'm cutting them all up. Okay, about the same size. They're just like, you know, they're just little, they're diced, you know. And I'm just chopping those up. I mean, I wouldn't say diced actually because they're not diced. They're chopped in kind of cubes, and they are going to cook at about the same pace as everything else. That's what you really want in a stir fry, so that you don't have some things that are really like wilted and overcooked, and then you have some things that are not even cooked. They're still al dente, right? So also, if you have that situation, then you can add vegetables as you're cooking. So you add the vegetables that take the longest first, and then you start to add the ones that are going to cook the shortest amount of time, and you add those last. That's the key to a good scramble as well, which I'll show you guys the scramble soon, and I know you'll love that. So I'm just dicing up all my veggies here, and my mushrooms just, you know, nice and kind of thick because I don't want them to cook too fast. I don't want them to cook a lot faster than the celery or the broccoli. So I'm cooking them kind of thick. Throw those in there. All of these things I'm just going to throw in at the same time. Then my pepper. And quantity is up to you. Like if you guys are really going to add a ton of veggies, you don't need a lot of each vegetable. If you only got a couple vegetables, then you want to add a lot so that that's the majority of your meal. Majority of our meal is going to be vegetables, and we're going to, you know, have a nice little bed of lentils and have some of our protein in there. But, you know, if it's just for me and Vito, because my kids are not going to eat this stir fry, unfortunately, but I will be able to pull some of the broccoli and some of the zucchini slices onto their plate, and they'll eat it if it has no flavor other than a little bit of sea salt. Because I don't know, their palates are so young. Now, zucchini cooks really fast, so I'm going to cut these in some bigger chunks so that they cook slower. All right, so just big chunks for the zucchini because they tend to cook quick. Quicker than broccoli, quicker than peppers. All right, and then I'll cut up my broccoli, and I like these. Oh, here's my lentils. I like being near the stove so I can hear it. So when it starts to boil, it tells me, and I turn that down. So now it's gonna simmer. Finish cooking that way, and I got my broccoli. And, you know, there's really no right or wrong, especially with vegetables. It's all about just keeping the size consistent. So with broccoli, I'm not going to cut them super small, but I don't want them to be really huge because I got other veggies in there that are going to cook up at a pretty good pace. I don't know if you eat the stalk, but it's really nutritious. So if you can go closer to the end and eat that, that's good. Gives you these nice, hearty green slices, and I'll cut these in half because they're big. All right, and then I'm just going to throw that in there. All right, and then lastly, we're going to have the onion. So I cut onion in big slices as well because onion cooks pretty fast. And it cooks down a lot. So you put some onion in there and you think you added a lot of onion, and then you don't even really taste it when you're eating your meal. It kind of goes down, cooks down really fast, just like mushroom. So I'm going to go thick slices here, and then a couple of thick slices, and there we got it. All right, now I could also add garlic if I want to. Maybe I'll add a little bit of that because, you know, I'm sitting here waiting on my lentils, right? If not, then I'm just hopping to the next thing, right? I could start to dust my tofu. So here I've got all my veggies to saute. I'm going to add a little olive oil to this, and I'm going to saute it up, stirring it around. Put the cover on for now because that's not going to take very long. That will take me 5 minutes total to saute those vegetables. It took me about 5 minutes to prep them as the lentils are working on it. I'll cut up my little green onion here so that we can have these for the top. You don't really need to cook green onion. You could, but it's nice as a little fresh topping on your stir fry. So you can do that. You got this, and this. If you are a tofu person, then you probably already know how to keep your tofu. If you're not, and you're trying to learn new things, and you're trying to add different items to your menu, it's a healthy source of protein. But after you open it, you want to submerge it in water again, right? So it likes to live in water, and you change that water. So if you don't eat it for a couple days, just change the water anyway. I'm just going to rinse this tofu, and I'm going to add cold water to this Tupperware dish so that the tofu is submerged because remember, it likes to sit in fluid. It likes to stay absorbed. So I just keep it in a nice Tupperware. You don't have to cover it totally, but you want to surround it with water so that it keeps good. And then I'll put that there because I'm going to definitely heat it up quick when the kids get home, and they're going to want some tofu as well. So I'll cut some more up for them. All right, now we got this tofu. It's been soaking in here for a little bit. I could wait a little bit longer, but I'm going to show you guys what to do next with that. Okay, so what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to put a little bit of this semolina flour onto this plate and just coat the bottom of it. And then I'm going to scoop out the tofu, right? Scoop that tofu out. Get a I'm going to scoop it out with a spoon because I don't want any extra fluid to go onto here. I kind of want it to be just as is. So I'm just going to scoop out tofu chunks. All right. Leave any of the excess marinade juices or whatever down there in the bowl. All right. And then I'm just going to kind of shake it around here and just try to get all around the tofu. I'm gonna flip them over a little bit, shake them a little bit, and just kind of get a light dusting of the flour all over the tofu. That way, when I throw it into the pan, remember, tofu is, you don't even really have to cook it. So what you're doing is you're lightly toasting this so that you can fry the outside of that flour, breadcrumb, whatever you're using, slightly. And it's also obviously warming up and heating the tofu. You don't want it to be in there too long because otherwise then it gets rubbery. If you've ever had fried tofu at a restaurant, most likely it's been rubbery unless it's a really good place. And that's hard to find. So making it at home is like the best option. So there you have it. I've got my tofu ready to go. I'll just throw a little olive oil in the pan and I'll saute it up quickly. So just about to flip. You can see them getting a little crispy. Sprinkling a little bit of turmeric, cumin, and olive oil on the lentils and the veggies.